Now, I will quite often refer to different things like TV shows or the news or any of these external inputs that we, read, watch, or hear or see and bring into our brain with some sort of intent of gaining knowledge. I usually refer to them as stimuli or something other like that, basically calling them just triggers in our brain that are meant to insinuate an emotional reaction. And when I'm using this, it's usually because I'm trying to define them as a negative thing. Like, I think the news that we see in the mainstream is just a sort of distraction, a stimuli that is turning our brains onto something away from something else, which that is what I basically mean when I'm saying that. I don't always mean it in the negative way, but that's usually what I mean when I'm saying it. That's probably the context behind when I'm saying it. But now I want to talk about a very specific type, which is sort of that meta media, which is media that recognizes that it is just that thing. It is something that's going to make you think a certain way, that is going to instill and enact a bias within you, and that will follow a sequence of events, whatever they may be, depending on the content of what you've engaged and the emotional attachment you have with it. So it might seem hypocritical that I am acting like I know what the thing is and I'm still doing it on here, but that's not because I'm trying to be meta media, as I call it. That's just because this is the only effective mode of transport for this information. If there was any other way that I could do this and get it across to people, I'd do it, but because this is most effective now, this is what I do, which also sounds like I'm digging a hole of justification, but not trying to be hypocritical. But these medias that tend to be sort of meta and sort of woke and recognise the fact that they are nothing more than convictions and convincings of one side or another, and they come to terms with that in their own efforts, they're usually doing it for all the wrong reasons. They're not trying to spread awareness, they're trying to get people on their side. They often don't use the evidence, they use emotional conviction, and because they know that that's exactly what they're targeting, they can do it a lot better than when it's incidental. And this isn't just something that certain people personally do within themselves. It's thing corporations do. Corporations will play with your feelings, with your sort of very humanistic sides to get you on their team, basically. You think of some of the most notorious scammers have hid themselves as charitable figures, have hid themselves as those collecting money to save the impoverished, yet go and piss about with the money themselves, or so on and so on. You get this disguise, basically, and it really is the best disguise to appear as moral and of great human nature, because no one can disagree with you and find you unlikable unless you're too positive it becomes obvious. But if you're smart enough to come up with this idea, you're smart enough to hide that, I suppose. So it's really dangerous that we need to look into the media we think is aware of its impact and is taking necessary precautions, even more than that feels lackluster and blunted, because of course it's going to seem like that is more of an issue, but really this is more cunning. This is like the sociopath compared to the psychopath. They know what they're doing and they know how to play around the rules. The ones that aren't doing it on purpose are just going to slam you into the wall. The ones that know what they're doing are going to manage to get you around the wall, down the stairs and into the back of the van, They have a plan which is much more deadly than the brute force approach of those unwillingly giving across their bias. So it puts us in a sticky situation of who do we trust, what do we trust, and where can our sources be, which it makes logical sense. Maybe only get your information from what you gain, but then on wider schemes that's impossible. So you really need to dedicate your information sources and fact check and go through everything you look into and credibilize whatever it may be, regardless of how on the surface you believe this is correct, this is trustworthy, this is what I can back, because there is a high chance that what you immediately side with you have jumped so quickly to side with because that's their intention. So just make sure you check why and how and what you're reading, and read into how it is presented, because that appeal to human nature is what traps us in these, radicalizing things. People are so turned to one side or another because they get so emotionally vexed by issues unrelated to them that just upset them because of how they're given to them, when that has been perfectly crafted by a side of people that wants them on their side. Now, this is prevalent in the left and in the right, but it's dangerous everywhere, and it's dangerous everywhere. But the right side of it seems the more prevalent. But I don't know, the left, there's definitely, I'm not saying there's nothing in the left, there definitely is, and I've seen stuff in the left, but the right side radicalisation coming from people who don't even realise they're being radicalised is so much more dangerous.